This is the Loose Pass Rugby Podcast, only on Megafoon Rugby.
Welcome to this very special instant reaction episode of Loose Pass. Huw Griffin has kindly agreed to step in for Harry, who's on his way to Chicago to watch the All Blacks take on Ireland. Thank you for this. But before we start, let's talk to us about that video dropping just now about analysing France with our friend Andre Pretorius.
So next up, the Springboks have got France on my channel. Debuting right now is a deep dive on France tactics, France strategies, the French DNA in rugby. You can go over on HG Rugby to find that. I feature in that video heavily a certain Andre Pretorius, who you may recognize from Megafoon Rugby. He breaks down in great technical detail some of the France attacking and defensive strategies. Check it out. I think you really enjoy it.
Okay, thank you. Let's get into this game. Springboks taking on Japan.
Yes, so I've had a funny afternoon of rugby because I've watched 3 matches and all of them were quite one-sided and dull, except they were all happening at the same time. So it was a mix of kind of but also really stressful because I had people messaging me about them all at the same time as well. But yeah, how was that one for me? I think the scoreline is probably as would be expected, maybe a little heavier than maybe I was thinking. I thought Japan would score more. I thought Japan would have more up their sleeve. But to be honest, you have to talk about the conditions of this game. And with the conditions, I don't just mean the weather, which obviously played a huge part. So you've got it's the first game on the Northern Tour. Okay, they've all been up here in various guises for a while now. It's at Wembley Stadium, which isn't a rugby ground. It's sparsely attended. Even if there was 25,000 people there, it feels like hardly anybody because the ground holds 90,000. It's a game that the Springboks are expected to win really heavily. So they go out there and they go, okay, right, this is kind of just a bit of a going through the motions game, to be honest. And then they go 3 scores up really fast. And then so it's kind of like even more of I'm used to playing in big games against the All Blacks and for rugby championships and things here. And this isn't that. And now it's going really easy and the weather's terrible. It's hammering down with rain. Ugh. And then they go through kind of a period. So the Springboks were up a man for 20 minutes of that game. And the scoreline during those periods was 7-all, which is disappointing. So then you've got kind of everyone's kind of playing below their level. And then they have a lull in a game where they underperform. They realize they're underperforming and then they try and force it. And then they kind of go from not trying to the maximum to trying too hard, and then balls go down and the weather's kind of affecting the handling and things. So basically what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is from a Springbok fan point of view, I wouldn't read that much into this game. I don't think there is that many learnings. I was kind of a bit surprised by how strong the lineup was. I know they were trying new things like Andre Esterhuizen playing in the forwards. Like he was playing properly in the forwards. He was in lineouts. He got on ball try. It got chalked off. His try that he did get was a very proper forwards try around the field. He was playing in the forwards. I thought Quagga at times was playing in the centres, which was interesting because he still had Diolende and David Creel on. Sorry, Jesse Creel. So those are the kind of were they trying new calls? Were they trying new moves? Maybe. I think this game must have broken the record for the number of contestable kicks that the Springboks put in, because I think you had more contestable kicks than rucks. In fact, I counted for a while between the 5th minute and the 30th minute, the Springboks had 1 ruck in Japan's half. It was all offloads, it was all passes, and then it was either a penalty conceded by Japan, a knock-on by Japan, or a penalty or a knock-on by the Springboks. So there was no flow. That's the other thing when you're playing against a team way below you is it's very hard to get a flow going because they don't kind of perform how you would expect them to perform. So you can't get into patterns like you would against rugby championship opposition because Japan will do things that you don't expect, whether that's they bring something different or just that they kind of break in a way that you weren't expecting, if that makes sense. So it was a very scrappy game. They went contestable to pretty much everything. Obviously, the first half was the Sasha show, 2 tries, and he obviously set up what ended up being Wilco Louw's try early in the second half. He did a lot of contestables. When Manny came on, he did a lot of contestables. I think the things that the Boks need to worry about is not hammering home the scores when they were a man up, And the restarts, Japan really managed to take at least 3, maybe 4 restarts off the Springboks in this game. So that's something for them to work on. Other than that, Jasper Wiese was very hungry in defence. And that's kind of all that there is for me to take from this, to be honest with you.
All right, let's talk about something individual. You talked about Arendse as well. What I noticed was, somebody I spoke to earlier this week, we were wondering whether he's going to be an open side or a blind side. He was actually an open sider tonight. Kwagga went to 8. Franco stayed on the blind side, and Arendse played blind side flank in the scrum. He didn't contest rucks that I could see. Then there were never any rucks. He was actually an extra defender in the back line, because both Arendse and Kriel were both still on the field, which means you had 7 forwards competing for whatever they were competing, and then you had 8 backline players. Do you think that was what the idea was? Because that guy is like a machine when he starts running, or even mauling nowadays. Looks like you can't stop him.
Yeah, it was interesting, and there were the kind of shots where all like Esterhuizen, De Allende, and Kriel were all in shot at the same time. You're like, whoa, that's weird. That must be intense for the defending team. Obviously, he did get stuck in at maul time. Do I think it was the plan to have like 8 backs on the pitch? I kind of feel like he was playing as a forward and at ruck time and things. That's how I felt he was playing. I'd probably have to watch it again. But I don't know if having 8 backs on the pitch was necessarily the plan. I think he was a forward. I think Kwagga played as much as a back as he did when Kwagga came on.
So you're saying there were 9 backs?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because
2 scrum halves for a while.
Yeah, but the one was in the wing. Harry specifically said that they made Andre number 20 to prove the point that it was not a 5-3 bench. It's a 4-2-2 bench. 4 forwards, 2 hybrids, and 2 backs. Yeah, a guy that stood out for me that played very well, seemed very explosive, was Kolisi. I mean, many times he just sort of sprinting away and then streaking ahead. What did you think of his game?
Kolisi's in the form of his life. I worked out that he's got 13 tries in his last 28 games for club and country. So call it a try every other game he's averaging. And yeah, athletically, he looks good. He looks quick. This is certainly the best that I've seen him play in the last 12, 18 months since I've been watching him, which I didn't watch him back in his Stormers days, which I know has a high reputation for. But yeah, this is certainly peak seer since I've been watching him.
Talking about scoring tries, Kurtley Arendse is now 1 try behind JP Peterson for, I think, the 9th most Springbok tries. 23 tries scored in the Springbok jersey. 2 tries tonight. He seems to be back as well, especially in the second half. He just came alive.
For sure. I think he got official player of the match in the end. The cool thing about his first try is Colby makes the line break. Colby never looks at him. Like, if you watch, Colby actually looks the other way. So Colby looks to where the space is. I guess Kurtley's like coming up over his left shoulder, and Colby must say to him, yeah, in the space, bro. And Colby just puts it there without even looking, and Kurtley overtakes him and scores the try. So great understanding between those two. They're great players and they've played enough together, so you would expect that. Just kind of like on the back three. Firstly, it's interesting because when you think about it, if you class Ethan Hooker as a centre, which I know he's not actually played that much centre, but people think he'll end up there. So you actually had 4 centres on the pitch. Which it was fun. And Sasha's played centre as well, so maybe at one point you had 5 centres on the pitch. And I'm interested, speaking of Sasha, when he's back covering kicks, when he's covering the backfields, he's always the one who catches it. He goes out on the wing or he stands in the middle. He's always the one who fields the kicks and does something back, does the return serve, if you like. Which is interesting. I don't know whether that is the Springboks having the plan of like, hey, listen, guys, this Sasha kid's pretty good. Maybe let him have the ball. Or whether that's Sasha going, hey, I'm going to stand there, okay? Either way, seems to work pretty well. His second try, I want to say it was Dylan Riley he took on the outside. I'm not sure, but if it was, that's impressive. Not many people take Dylan Riley on the outside. So there was nothing really on there, and he just creates a try from nothing. So says Sasha, another one of those games.
Well, the other talking point for this weekend was Zachary Porton making his debut at tight head, a 21-year-old head boy in his old days, making waves at Stormers. What did you think of his debut?
Went well in the scrum, didn't he? I said that Japan's scrum isn't as bad as some people might assume, and I think he did a great job. I noticed both Sia Kolisi and Malcolm Marks chatting to him throughout the game, saying you did well there, you did the right thing there. I think there was a turnover that it might have been him that got, it might have been he got the turnover assist. But Sia gave him the tap on the head, like, yeah, you did the right thing. And then they were talking through, okay, next we're going to go and do this. So that's great. That's great for the young kid to have these guys around him, these Springbok legends, talking him through the game phase by phase. That's exactly what you want. This is the thing that I think the Springboks are best at the moment, is bringing in new players and introducing them into an environment, into a team that's successful, that knows what they're doing, that plays well, and has leaders around to help them through. I maybe would have liked to see him stay on a bit longer, but Razzie's made that decision, so I hope we get to see him again, maybe against Italy, maybe against Wales, probably against Wales, actually. But yeah, I think a tidy debut, no obvious mistakes, and did his job and more at scrum time.
Talking about tight dates, have you ever seen a more popular try than the one scored by Will Kulo?
Yeah, he did well, didn't he? He must have had his heart in the mouth at the end there when about the whole forearm thing, which was no, never anything for me. So yeah, so the the Stormers will be happy because they've got 2 Springboks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. No, just ruined the, come on, man. Don't get personal. Yeah, okay, let's just lastly talk about those 2 locks of ours, Arendse Snyman and Loot de Jager. Loot announced his return. I mean, 20 tackles. I think he made the most tackles of everybody in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, I didn't realize that Springbok would have an opportunity to make 20 tackles in that game. I'll have to see how the stats pan out on that tomorrow. But yeah, I think did Arendse play the full 80? I think both of them were on for a long time.
No, Loot went off earlier. Rowan came on, but I think Arendse stayed until the end.
Yeah. Oh, there was one where Ruan gets the ball off Kirtley for a line break. Number 1 golden rule of rugby, guys: never pass to a lock in a line break unless it's Thibaut Flamand. All other locks, don't pass to them. Okay. And what happens? He gets the ball and he gets turned over, right?
By a lock.
Yeah. So just don't pass to locks in line breaks. Okay. But I thought Lud was okay. I thought obviously the line out went pretty well. I can't remember many, if any, going wrong. Obviously that combination of him and Arendse has a very, the aggregate height is extremely tall. I think he did okay. I still think Ruan is ahead of him, and I think Arendse did his thing. His offloading thing, it does go wrong sometimes, and the conditions maybe weren't right for it, which might be disappointing for him. Because, in the rain, it's not just about how accurate his offloads are, but how realistic is it for a teammate to catch it when the ball is that slippery. But, I think Arendse, the thing that stood out more to me about his game was his disruption of the maul. Now, you would expect the Springboks to have the advantage over the Japanese at maul time. The Japanese did manage to start sacking Springbok mauls quite successfully. Some got pinged by the referee, some didn't. So maybe that's another thing the Springboks could look back on is we got stopped a little bit easily at maul time. We'd like to control it a bit better. Also, obviously, Arendse got pinged for the obstruction for Esther Hazen's first non-try, which is something that is really starting to annoy me in rugby. It feels like every game we see a try chalked off for obstruction at the maul. You'd like to think teams were starting to learn from that, but it doesn't seem so yet. But there was one maul in particular where Arendse just got his long arms going and managed to just scrag the Japanese player and stop anything from occurring before it had a chance to. So I think that's his work at the maul probably stood out to me more than in the loose.
Yeah, true. Yeah, like I said last, but now this is the very last one. It's another experiment. It's not experiments happened before, and he's played successfully. Actually played there a lot for the Storm. It was Cheslin Colby at 15. Second half, especially, he came alive a little bit. I think it was a success, that little experiment.
Yeah, we know he can play there. He's played there plenty. I mean, I could look up his percentage playing there, but it's not small, and he's a hugely talented player, and he can play most positions. I've even seen him pack down at 8 once, and obviously throw balls into lineouts and stuff. And so it's good to know that they've got that as an option, that it does work. I do think that Colby's not playing at his peak at the moment, to be honest. I think he's a little bit off color. Obviously, he's had a great moment in the second half to set up a try, but he is making mistakes and kind of just sloppy moments in games, So hopefully it's just a phase. Form is temporary, class is permanent. So hopefully
Tournament.
Colby's class comes back to show it sooner rather than later. I didn't think it was his best game. I didn't think it was his worst game. So yeah, good to know that it's an option, and especially if you're going to go 7-1, 6-2 splits, that he can go there and look fine.
Just on the Springbok defense, second half, Japan started attacking the short side, and they made some strides there. They made a few inroads there. What did you think of that? Any lapses in defense? Anything to worry about?
I don't know, man. Japan only scored one try, and it was from a tap and go when the box weren't set. So Japan haven't created anything in terms of team tries, which is disappointing. Really, you think of Japan under Eddie Jones, they have the kind of set moves, the strike plays. Maybe the rain halted that. Maybe just the pure physicality halted that. But I felt that. Do you remember there was one where the tight head prop did a tap and go, and he had no one with him?
Yeah,
and
they called him
over.
back.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I don't think that Japan ever really in open play threatens the Springbok line at any point in this game.
Yeah, but I mean, that try that they scored, it was also around there. It was a sustained period of attack close to our goal line, and eventually we conceded. I mean, I'm a little worried about that close range defense of ours as well.
Maybe. I mean, you gave away a couple of penalties. You let them stay down there. But like I said, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to judge for the reasons that I outlined at the start. I really wouldn't overanalyze this game because kind of the Springbok mentality at that moment is kind of they're not operating at peak concentration, are they?
Of course not. Well, the idea behind this game was, in closing, it was to get the South African players playing in Japan that haven't played for the past month a bit of game time and get a bit of a loosener for that big match against France next week. Do you think this test helped in any way, or a bit of a futile exercise?
The thing about it is that you haven't escaped injury free. I think Ethan Hooker went off with a HIA and Ox Nché has gone off. Now, whether that was just super precautionary, they've gone, let's just get him off. It's not worth the risk. So that's kind of the thing. The main thing from this game was to try and come away injury free, and you haven't achieved that. Look, the Japanese based guys have now got game time in them. I think that, yeah, it wasn't a competitive game. That's why I said I'm repeating myself throughout the pod. It's very, very hard to take conclusions from a game that's so uncompetitive, so one-sided. Maybe a 15-on-15 in training might have done the same, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, you, thank you so much for agreeing to step in here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to do this more often with you. You're not number two or the other guy. You're one of us. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
This is the Loose Pass Rugby Podcast, only on Megaphone Rugby.